Okay, hey, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. To have a really cool little prototype preview for you guys from the brand OLTO-8 watches. They were founded back in 2020, and Alto is 8 in Italian, and also the same shape, of course, turned on its side as the symbol for infinity. They really believe that the number 8 means the perfect kind of piece of a little slice of life, right? Life works in 8-hour cycles, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of entertainment. There's just a certain magic to the number 8 that they really appreciate, and they kind of ran with it. And of course, a number that kind of represents infinity as well in its infinite loop. But in terms of the type of watch, really cool here. They integrated that into create a really interesting dive watch. Now, typically some key characteristics in design language, you're looking for a diver. Of course, you're going to want to find water resistance, typically some type of screw-down crown. You want to find something that's tough, legible with a dive time bezel, and a dive extension is always nice if on bracelet. This is their Tide X prototype, and this is in the kind of green accented colorway, and it's coming soon to Kickstarter. And it's just basically just a unique diver that combines OLTO-8's complex design language and the utility of a dive watch. And it's like actually not super expensive, which is cool. It's only, I believe the eventual MSRP is going to be just $329, and the Kickstarter price is going to be $249, so that's like an $80 discount, and I think that's pretty cool. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, now before we even dive in, guys, some of you are probably wondering, how do you even tell time on this? So you got a seconds hand, you have the minute hand there. So it's going to be like, 56? And then in terms of the hour, it's going to be whichever one of these hands is pointing here. So this is going to be basically your whole hours are going to be, and as you can see also, 12 a.m. to essentially 12 p.m. So here it's going to be at 10, or about to be 10 o'clock anyway, right? So then, and then right there is going to be, so it's technically 9:56, and some of you are going to already be kind of tuned out at that because it's like, oh, that's just too much work. Well, you have your phone if you need instant, timing. This is definitely going to be something that is more of an experience, and it's deliberate. Like, you want to wear this for the complexity, for the kind of weirdness, and for the oddity that it brings. But I will say is that they did go through some pretty great lengths to create something that had a balance between kind of the, the shock factor of the aesthetics as well as functionality. Like, I mean, they could have went crazy with the case, but this is a 42 millimeter diameter case. So nice full-size case, wears nice and flat. Thickness is going to be just 12.9 millimeters. And it's, you're getting sapphire on both sides, display, a lot of skeletonization. You're getting, of course, additional things that would raise height, like the special hands and everything like that in there, and the discs. So that's pretty nice. 49.2 millimeters lug to lug. It's on the longer side, but you guys can see it definitely tapers down in terms of that kind of down curve of the case. So very natural in terms of the way that it will sit on your wrist. And then, they put it on a silicone, very soft, very flexible, easily down swept draping type of strap. So I think, again, it's kind of that juxtaposition of something like a dive watch, iconically, super wearable and versatile, and then taking it and saying, hey, let's also do some crazy complications on here. Again, are they needed? Well, our wristwatches really needed at this point. That you're surrounded by the time, and there's, atomically, and you still want a nice mechanical timepiece that is going to have, relatively good timekeeping on it, right? And this caliber, we'll get to that, is even, in-house regulated to plus or minus 10 seconds per day, which is pretty nice, especially considering it's only a, right now, if you get it on, if you put your money towards it on Kickstarter, $249, you're going to get something that is actually mechanical, skeletonized, and regulated. I mean, that's pretty cool. So, getting into some more details, flat sapphire crystal, guys. On the back, it's going to be a mineral, which kind of makes sense, right? It's not like you're going to get a lot of scratches there. So you do have the sapphire on the front, though, which is nice. You're getting an inner AR coating. You're also going to get a 120 click bezel. Surprisingly good action, but this is a stainless steel case. I know it looks, it has that look, kind of that dull, matte look that you typically see on titanium. That's been blasted, especially within kind of the EDC community. Surprisingly satisfying and fidgetable bezel action. Nice. Yeah, like, that's nice. And I don't know how hard that was, but obviously if this was in titanium, the chances are the bezel action wouldn't feel this good. So that's a plus. Also, weight wise, even though so much is skeletonized, it still does have a decent heft to it. So your brain won't have to fight too hard to reconcile, any types of feelings of quality. But again, this is not meant to be some luxury thing. It's really meant to be a very interesting thing, right? You even do get a side screw down crown. And again, when it comes to stylized type of divers, I mean, there's some out there that don't even have a screw down crown. So I think that's cool. And the size of this crown is actually really good. Like, very easy to actuate. Nice winding. The grip, of course, because it's matte blasted, means that grip's there. I mean, you can see there's not even a lot. It has kind of a more gear tooth grip on top, and you don't even need that, like, just because the surface is more grippy and not polished. That just works. Nice. Okay, now getting to some of the juicy stuff, right? We already saw the screw down crown, nicely signed. That's a good look. I mean, even if it was just a plain watch that looked like this, that's a pretty decent formula. But then you get into all the wild stuff here, right? So we'll give it another quick wipe. That's one of the drawbacks, of course, of having extra crystals on your watches. There's going to be extra points to smudge, but check that out. Very, very cool. There's actually an automatic custom caliber that they made. I don't know who they made it through, so I'm kind of reluctant to post anything on that, but they call it the SL 2204 Bravo or B. And this has a 36-hour power reserve, beats at 4 hertz, guys. Yeah, 4 hertz skeletonized movement that's accurate to plus or minus 10 seconds per day, right? And it's hacking in hand windable. So that has a lot going for it. Now, the architecture here, guys, do I recognize it from anywhere? I mean, I'm hesitant because it's so skeletonized. It's really hard, with a lot of these bridges and everything that have obviously been sculpted and kind of redone. It could be something that's just been really re-engineered, or it could be something more original. I honestly don't know. I will say that it looks good in terms of the fact that it's on display. It does have a little brush to it there, and of course it also does have a little bit of a coating to it that do keep it looking quite nice and kind of dark and subdued. And then on the other side, of course, you're going to get, let me give this crystal now another quick wipe. And it's cool looking. Okay, it's not everything has to have a crazy functional kind of asset to it. Some things just look cool, right? And this looks cool. I mean, look at that. It's just all that nice, beautiful kind of open work layout for not a lot of money. Now, yeah, I mean, geez, they could have just done a skeletonized traditional movement or whatever. And I don't know. I think it's kind of fun that they tied in some of their more interesting complications, where they have those kind of satellite spinning discs and hands. So I think it's cool. Now, in terms of the dial itself, it's multi-layered, semi-skeletonized. It does have a printed index. You do have that chapter ring. You have the numerals. You can see there's not enough room to fit all those numerals up there. So, it's going 12, 2, 4. And then, of course, the odd numbers are in between. It's not an issue for me, but yeah, it could be an issue for some. I think this one is just you know, it's meant to be fun, meant to be a little quirky. And look at the details there. There's just a lot of cool, fun things at play. And, you know, I think we all kind of need that to a certain extent. Do we all need this watch? No, absolutely not. But I think we all do need to have a little bit more fun collecting and, you know, not have everything be so stuffy and serious all of the time. I mean, look at the popularity of, you know, these Swatch collabs or even, you know, other micro brands that are out there that are putting out, you know, pizza themes and all types of funky dials and stuff like this. I mean, here you're getting something that also is technically quite complex. It's not just out of the box and different looking. It's actually pretty hard to produce something like this, right? Especially when you're putting it in the case of a dive watch that's meant to be quite robust. Like, to have something like this and build it to a spec that is going to be, you know, in a tough watch that's meant to be kind of taken with you on an adventure and knocked around a bit. I think that's, you know, that's taking on a challenge, and that's cool. Now, the Lume does glow green. I don't know the exact compound. This also does have 200 meters of water resistance, which is, again, nice surprise considering that it's skeletonized to this level. And it's relatively thin as well. You're getting a 22 millimeter lug width, which, you know, for a 42 millimeter diameter watch is going to be quite proportional. And you've seen these straps before. They're 22 millimeter vented silicone straps with quick release spring bars, although the quick release little finger is going to be a little bit recessed. So, it doesn't necessarily mean toolless, but it's definitely going to be, you know, unless you have a nail or something, but, you know, you'd still probably just use a spring bar tool if you want to swap them out, or you could just, you know, kind of jam it in between there. But I think it's nice that you don't have to necessarily scuff up the case to grab at these. You know, you can kind of just pop them off directly through those openings. Also nicely ventilated, guys. Nice contouring here. You can see very clean. You know, they are made out of silicone, so they're not probably going to be the most dust resistant, you know, but they're going to be super soft, very supple, and, you know, pretty much require no break-in period. So with that said, let's actually get this on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, it almost looks like it could be a movie prop. It's not overly sized by any means, but again, it's more of a full-sized wear. It doesn't have a bunch of tricks shrinking down the case or anything like that, but you guys can see it lays nice and flat. That matted surface is going to play with light just a little bit differently. It's going to give you a more kind of modern contemporary vibe. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the lens, you're going to get a good amount of perspective distortion. It's going to make the watch seem much larger than it actually is, even on my 7.5-inch wrist. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low and then just tighten up the frame like so that you guys can get, you know, still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. And you guys can see that it lays quite nice. Look at that. Nice and flat. Decent little contour there on the turn down lugs. It doesn't feel like it's propped up or elevated. It feels like it's just sitting on your wrist, not hugging it, you know, as much as other models, but I mean, it does the job. And of course, this strap, if you know, as long as you don't mind the aesthetics, in terms of the wear, right, it's going to be super comfortable with the silicone setup. And looking at the dial, guys, again, a lot of interest. I mean, the green color, it makes me think of kind of Ben 10. I don't know if, how many guys are in that age range or have kids. For me, it was my kids used to watch Ben 10. And, you know, kind of reminds me of that green. So I feel like this is kind of a fun one there. Of course, this is a prototype, so things can change, and, you know, they can, depending on the feedback from everybody, they might change certain aspects or add certain aspects. One thing I hope that they add in would be a lumed bezel pip there. I think that would just, you know, give you one less thing to kind of be contrarian about, because there's already so much on this that can be a bit polarizing. I think safe to say people would have just enjoyed a lume pip there in the bezel insert. But with that said, let's get this off the wrist, set up for some lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. All right. decent lume. Again, though, it's not really going to be meant for, being some crazy, super hyper functional watch. This definitely is more, can have a lot of style, over substance there, form over functionality, but it is still quite functional. You guys can see the 3 prongs on the hours are going to still be seen and loomed. And then you have the minute hand, which also has that loomed minute track that does go all the way around. Of course, at this angle, you probably can't see, but there we go. We'll just tilt it slightly. So now you can see at the angle there that as that spins around, you're good to go. It doesn't look like the seconds hand has any lume on it, which a bit of an omission in terms of a diver, but they also didn't do a loomed bezel pip. 2 things I think that would definitely help this package. Maybe we'll give it a little bit of a little blast there, a little black light. Okay, definitely glowing more kind of on the greenish, bluish hue, not quite a pure green. It's hard to kind of tell the way this is going to get picked up by the camera. But one thing I always like to work in is going to be a bit of a low light transition, because you're always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And you guys can see, of course, that matte blasted case finishing. Really not going to do any favors in terms of visual interest, but again, it's a nice juxtaposition against the really complex dial and hand layout. So yeah, it's just one of those things. Check that out there. A lot of details to be kind of enjoyed as you gaze into that skeletonized dial setup. Really the only part that's not skeletonized is going to be those hours on that kind of upper track there. And yeah, you can see not the craziest lume out there, but again, this doesn't have to be in the dark for it to look crazy. It looks pretty crazy in the light as well. So very bold design there, guys. We'll get all the lights back on here going and get into some closing thoughts. On the wrist, this wears well. And sometimes for these kind of more wild card type watches, that can be, part of what makes it kind of a wild card here. I think the wear profile is actually quite wearable and subdued. So again, nice little play against a very complex overall kind of visual layout. Now, that flat profile makes it look and feel a little bit thinner than you might think, which is another nice thing. So if you do, if you are concerned with a 42 millimeter watch with a 22 millimeter lug width, this does wear kind of on the flatter side, which means that it also could wear on the larger side potentially. Sometimes you feel like you have a plate on your wrist. This one for me, again, it feels like a full size watch, doesn't really teeter too close to anything that feels oversized or extra large. But definitely going to be something out of the comfort zone for somebody who normally wears vintage inspired or more mid-size kind of 38, 39 millimeter sizes. Now, in terms of comparable models, hard to assign a comparable, as such a unique kind of borderline, again, wild card diver. So, for the money, you're getting something truly unique though, for really not a lot of money, right? Especially if you back the Kickstarter campaign and take advantage of that $80 discount, of just, $249 out the door, which is pretty crazy. So bottom line for me, guys, clearly will be a niche and polarizing piece and not for everyone. Like most OLTO-8s, to be honest, though, in terms of their normal design is actually pretty abnormal. But at this price point, I can definitely see more collectors, especially within this genre, very popular dive watches, right? I think more people might be open to giving this one a chance, right? Because of the more entry-level pricing and considering all of what you're getting, hacking, hand-windable, mechanical, skeletonized movement, accurate to plus or minus 10 seconds per day. I mean, and that's the widest range. So that's pretty cool. So I, for one, am really kind of happy to see something like this, bringing something a little bit more different to the market. Just because typically, kind of when these more approachable price points, under $400, under 300, if you do the early, kind of the early bird pricing on Kickstarter, you're going to find stuff typically in terms of that entry level space being just massively more derivative in terms of dive watches. They're going to be more so about kind of packing the stat sheet, not necessarily packing a whole lot of design or innovation or anything really too creative. It's going to be more so a cost saving exercise, like how much on the spec sheet can we cram into a watch while giving it a look that is going to be very versatile and look like a dive watch, right? Here you're getting something that I think just has a bit more of a deliberate flair to it, being something different, being something that, you know, is more of an expression of art, quote unquote, not high art or anything crazy like that, but yeah, it's more of an expression of their designers versus, you know, an expression of a market opportunity, right? From a more cynical aspect. So I do hope that they decide to add, you know, that lumed bezel pip to the production units, though. You know, while not a deal breaker for me, I could definitely see the omission as being something that it could distract, you know, kind of those spec sheet / bargain hunters from all the good that this one brings, right? Because there's a lot of interesting stuff. You just went over it, right? Like you're getting that titanium look, but not paying the titanium price, thanks to it being matte blasted steel. It's skeletonized. You're getting the display on both sides. You know, you're getting an interesting complication, right? Makes it a bit of a conversation piece as well. So yeah, there's definitely a lot here to kind of enjoy and have fun with. So with that said, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.